My grandfather looked at me like I had just shattered his heart. "Why did you take an Uber?" he asked in front of the entire family. "Where's the SUV I bought you?" The dining room went silent. They thought I had sold it because I was careless. They thought I couldn't handle responsibility. They thought I proved them right. What they didn't know was that someone sitting at that very table forced me to sell it. And tonight, I wasn't staying quiet anymore. If you love powerful revenge stories where underestimated women rise and expose the truth, hit subscribe, like this video, and comment below, have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Because sometimes the biggest betrayal doesn't come from strangers, it comes from your blood. Let me tell you what really happened. My name is Sophia Carter. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and if you asked anyone in town about my grandfather, they would have said one thing: he built this city. That's an exaggeration, of course, but when you run one of the biggest construction companies in central Ohio for 40 years, your name starts carrying weight. My grandfather, Richard Carter, built Carter Construction from a pickup truck and 2 hired workers in 1982. By the time I was born, he owned office buildings, warehouses, commercial developments. He wasn't just successful, he was respected. And from the time I was 8 years old, he treated me differently. Not because I was fragile, not because I was spoiled, but because he saw something. While other girls played with dolls, I followed him to job sites. He'd kneel beside me and hand me blueprints. "Read this," he'd say, and I would. By 15, I understood project timelines. By 18, I knew profit margins. By 22, I graduated with a degree in business management. And at my graduation dinner, Grandpa stood up and said something that changed everything. "To the future CEO of Carter Construction." He raised his glass, and every single person clapped. Except one, my uncle, Victor Carter. Victor was Grandpa's oldest child. He'd worked at the company for 20 years. He believed it was his birthright. But here's what people don't understand. Time served does not equal competence. Victor was good at appearing powerful. Sharp suits, confident voice, firm handshake. But behind the scenes, he avoided innovation, ignored new tech, resisted change. And worst of all, he hated that Grandpa valued my opinion. From the moment Grandpa mentioned future CEO, Victor started treating me differently, more dismissive, more sarcastic, more cold. But I ignored it, because I believed results would speak louder than insecurity. I was wrong. 2 weeks after graduation, Grandpa called for a family dinner. When dessert arrived, he handed me a small velvet box. Inside, a key. Outside, a brand new black Chevrolet Tahoe. "For leadership," he said, "for presence, for confidence." I hugged him so tight he laughed. Everyone cheered. Victor clapped slowly, then leaned toward me and said quietly, "Let's see how long you keep it." At the time, I thought it meant responsibility. I didn't know it meant survival. My first month at Carter Construction felt empowering. I modernized internal reporting systems, suggested digital tracking for materials, reduced supplier delays by 12%. Grandpa praised me. Victor said nothing. Then the problems began. Invoices approved under my login, payments processed without my authorization, vendor complaints I had never heard about. At first, I thought it was a clerical error. Then the numbers grew. $8,000, $15,000, $32,000, until finally, $47,000 missing, all traced back to my credentials. Grandpa called a board meeting. Security escorted me in. That alone felt humiliating. Grandpa didn't yell, but his disappointment was heavy. "Sophia," he said gently, "these transactions were approved from your account." I didn't authorize them. Victor stepped in smoothly. Dad, we have to be realistic. Leadership isn't about intention, it's about control. Control. That word burned. By the end of the meeting, I was suspended pending investigation. And as I walked out, Victor whispered, "This is why construction isn't for little girls." That was the moment something inside me changed. That night, Victor came to my apartment. No small talk, no fake sympathy. "Sell the SUV," he said. I stared at him. "What?" "You owe the company $47,000. I didn't steal anything." He stepped closer. "If you don't repay it, I'll push for criminal charges. Fraud, embezzlement, public record." My chest tightened. Not because I was guilty, but because a scandal would destroy Grandpa, and Victor knew that. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. His answer was simple. "You were never supposed to replace me." Selling that SUV was the hardest thing I'd done in my life, not because of the money, but because of what it represented. Grandpa's belief, his trust, his public declaration. I didn't tell him. I couldn't. I transferred the full $47,000 anonymously back into the company account. Victor thought he had won, but he underestimated one thing. I wasn't emotional. I was strategic. For 6 months, I disappeared from family events, but I wasn't hiding. I was investigating. I contacted an old cybersecurity consultant who once worked with us. One question: can someone duplicate login credentials internally? Answer: yes, especially someone with administrative override. Only 3 people had that access. One of them was Victor. We pulled server logs, IP address data, timestamps. Patterns emerged. Every fraudulent invoice originated from Victor's office terminal. Late nights, weekends, times when I wasn't even in the building. He thought deleting records erased evidence. He forgot about backups. Digital trails don't lie. By month 5, I had proof. But revenge isn't about speed. It's about timing. Grandpa's 75th birthday, full family gathering. I arrived in an Uber. That's when it happened. "Why did you take an Uber?" Grandpa asked loudly. "Where's the SUV I bought you?" The room went silent. Victor watched carefully, waiting for my embarrassment. Instead, I smiled. "I sold it." Grandpa looked crushed. Victor shook his head dramatically. "Unbelievable." That's when I placed a thick folder on the table. I sold it to repay money that was stolen using my name. Victor froze. I opened the folder. Every fraudulent invoice came from your office IP address. Here are the server logs. Here are admin override timestamps. Here's a certified forensic IT report. Victor stood up. "This is absurd." But his voice trembled. Grandpa flipped through the document slowly. Then he asked one question. "Victor, did you do this?" Silence. That silence was louder than any confession. The internal audit expanded. They found more. Not $47,000, over $300,000 siphoned across 5 years. Victor wasn't just sabotaging me, he was bleeding the company. Grandpa removed him immediately. Legal action followed. I never smiled during that process, because revenge isn't joy, it's justice. A month later, Grandpa called me into his office, the same office where I was suspended, the same leather chair, the same long oak table, the same window overlooking the construction yard. But this time, everything felt different. He stood up when I entered. That alone told me something had shifted. "I failed you," he said quietly. His voice wasn't the commanding voice the city respected. It was just a grandfather, regretful, honest. I closed the door behind me. "No," I replied. "You tested me." He shook his head slowly. "I should have trusted you sooner." Trust. That word mattered more than the title he was about to hand me. He slid a folder across the desk. Official letterhead, board signatures. Interim Executive Director, Sophia Carter. For a second, I didn't breathe. Not because I doubted myself, but because I understood what it meant. This wasn't just a promotion. This was responsibility. Outside the window, I noticed something parked in the executive space. A white Chevrolet Tahoe. Clean, sharp, powerful. This one represents clarity, Grandpa said. I looked at him. I won't sell this one. He smiled gently. I know. But the real test hadn't even started yet. When leadership changes, people watch carefully. Employees were divided. Some were relieved Victor was gone. Others were skeptical. Is she strong enough? Is this just sympathy? Can she really run this? I heard whispers. I didn't confront them. I outperformed them. First move, full financial transparency audit. Second move, digital security overhaul. Third move, performance-based restructuring. Within 3 months, operational costs dropped 9%, project delays reduced 15%, supplier relations stabilized. But numbers weren't the real battle. Culture was. Victor ruled with intimidation. I chose accountability. Weekly team briefings, open door policy, anonymous reporting channels. And slowly, the resistance softened, because competence silences doubt louder than arguments ever could. One afternoon, my assistant informed me that someone was asking to see me. It wasn't scheduled, it wasn't expected. It was my aunt, Victor's wife. She looked exhausted, not angry, just tired. I didn't know, she said before even sitting down. I know, I replied calmly. She nodded slowly. He blamed everyone else, even you. That didn't surprise me. She looked around my office. You're good at this, she said softly. I always was. For the first time, I didn't feel anger towards Victor, just clarity. Some people destroy others because they can't build anything themselves, and that's not your burden to carry. One evening, Grandpa stayed late. We stood together near the construction site balcony, workers finishing up, sun setting behind steel beams. You know, he said, when I started this company, nobody believed in me either. I looked at him. Then why didn't you believe me? He sighed. Because sometimes fear blinds even strong men. I wasn't afraid you'd fail. I was afraid I'd lose my son. That hit differently. Leadership isn't just strategy, it's emotion. Family complicates logic. I don't hate him, I said quietly. Grandpa nodded. That's why you're ready. 6 months later, I received notice. Victor wanted to speak with me before his sentencing. I debated going, but closure matters. The prison visitation room was colder than I expected. He looked smaller, less polished, less powerful. You won, he said bitterly. I sat calmly across from him. This wasn't a game. He leaned forward. You think they respect you? They're just afraid. I smiled slightly. No, they trust me. That's the difference. Silence filled the space. Then he asked something unexpected. Did you ever hate me? I thought carefully. No, I pitied you. That ended the conversation, because revenge isn't about humiliation. It's about growth, and I had already outgrown him. 1 year after that dinner, Carter Construction hit record profits. We expanded into 2 new states, launched sustainability initiatives, modernized project tracking completely. But the moment that meant the most, it wasn't financial, it was personal. At the annual company gala, Grandpa took the stage. He didn't talk about revenue, he didn't talk about expansion. He said, I built this company with my hands, but Sophia rebuilt it with her integrity. The entire room stood up. Applause filled the hall. Not forced, not polite, earned. And in that moment, I didn't feel revenge. I felt validation. Here's what I learned. Sometimes people will try to shrink you because your growth threatens them. Sometimes family will doubt you because tradition feels safer than change. And sometimes you have to lose something symbolic to gain something permanent. I lost an SUV, but I gained authority. I lost blind trust, but I gained earned respect. And, most importantly, I proved to myself that leadership isn't given, it's revealed under pressure. If you made it to the end, comment strength. And remember, the quiet ones they underestimate are usually the ones building empires in silence. Subscribe for more stories where power doesn't shout, it rises.